There's a particular moment that reveals everything about how deeply someone loves you, and most people miss it completely. It doesn't happen in grand gestures or romantic declarations. It happens in the shadows, in the unconscious behaviors that slip through when his guard is down. The man who loves you more than he realizes shows it in ways he doesn't understand, through actions that contradict his conscious intentions, through the parts of himself he hasn't integrated yet. What if the irritation he shows around you isn't rejection but the opposite? What if his withdrawal isn't distance but the deepest form of trust? What if everything you've been taught about love has caused you to miss the real thing when it's standing right in front of you? The shadow contains everything we've rejected about ourselves, everything we've deemed unacceptable, weak, or dangerous. But here's what most people don't understand about shadow work. The shadow doesn't just hold our darkness, it holds our light too. It holds every capacity for love that was too vulnerable to acknowledge, every desire for connection that felt too dangerous to admit. When a man falls in love more deeply than he consciously realizes, his shadow knows first. The unconscious recognizes the soul connection before the ego can process it, before his defenses can name it, before his fear can control it. And this creates one of the most misunderstood dynamics in human relationships. You'll see him become irritable around you for no apparent reason. He'll pick small fights about meaningless things. He'll seem bothered by habits he never mentioned before. And here's what's actually happening. His unconscious is overwhelmed by how much he feels, and his conscious mind is scrambling to create distance from feelings it doesn't know how to hold. The ego protects itself through opposition. When love threatens to dissolve the boundaries of who he thinks he is, the shadow creates friction to maintain separation. But this friction is not rejection. It's the sound of his inner world reorganizing itself around you. Every man carries within him an unconscious image of the feminine, what we call the anima. This inner figure contains all his experiences of the feminine, his mother, his past loves, his fantasies, his wounds. The anima represents his capacity for feeling, for intuition, for connection to the unconscious itself. When he meets a woman who constellates his anima powerfully, something extraordinary and terrifying happens. He begins projecting his inner feminine onto her. She becomes the carrier of everything he's disowned about his own capacity for feeling. She becomes magical, mysterious, unbearably significant. And here's the critical point. The more powerfully she activates his anima, the more unconscious his response becomes. He doesn't think, "This woman reflects aspects of my inner feminine that I need to integrate." He feels overwhelmed, destabilized, consumed by feelings he can't name. Watch how he behaves when you're not performing for him. When you're tired, when you're uncertain, when you're just existing, without trying to be anything. If he softens, if he moves closer, if he becomes more present, not less. This is the anima recognition. He's responding to your authentic being, not to your persona. The man who loves you more than he realizes will be drawn to your unguarded moments. He'll remember details from conversations you barely remember having. He'll notice when you're pretending to be fine. He'll feel your moods before you express them. This isn't conscious observation. This is the unconscious recognizing itself in you. One of the most common shadow defenses in men is intellectualization, the retreat into analysis when feeling threatens to overwhelm. He'll start explaining your relationship instead of experiencing it. He'll have theories about compatibility, about timing, about practical considerations. He'll build elaborate mental structures to contain what he's feeling. And women often interpret this as disinterest, as lack of passion, as evidence that he's not truly invested. But here's what's actually happening. He's so invested that he needs to create distance through thought. The feelings are too big, too dissolving, too threatening to his sense of control. The man who intellectualizes his love for you is often the man who loves you most dangerously, because he hasn't integrated the capacity to surrender to emotion. His shadow knows the depth of what he feels, and his ego is building walls of words to protect itself from drowning. Listen to how he talks about the relationship when he's explaining it. Is there anxiety beneath the analysis? Is there tension in his reasonableness? The more elaborate his theories become, the more overwhelmed he is by feelings he can't process. There's a particular kind of silence that emerges when someone loves you beyond their conscious awareness. It's not the silence of disinterest or disconnection. It's the silence of being so deeply affected that words become inadequate. He'll sit with you and say nothing, and somehow the nothing feels like everything. He'll be physically present in a way that's different from his usual energy. His nervous system relaxes around yours. His breathing synchronizes with yours. He occupies space differently when you're near. This is the shadow expressing what the conscious mind cannot speak. The body knows what the mind refuses to acknowledge. The unconscious recognizes home before the ego can admit vulnerability. Watch what happens in the moments between conversation. Does he fill empty space with noise, or can he rest in silence with you? The man who loves you unconsciously can be quiet with you without anxiety, because his deeper self is already in communication with yours beneath language. One of the most misunderstood shadow expressions of deep love is anger. Not abusive rage, not controlling fury, but the irritation and frustration that emerge when someone matters too much. When he suddenly becomes critical of small things, how you organize your space, you're driving your choices. This is often the shadow's attempt to create distance from feelings of overwhelming vulnerability. The unconscious logic is simple. If he can find things wrong with you, he can protect himself from how deeply he's falling. This anger is a defense against dissolution. It maintains separation when everything in him wants to merge. It creates boundaries when he's terrified of losing himself. The key distinction is, does his criticism push you away, or does it somehow keep him engaged? Real rejection creates distance. Shadow anger maintains proximity while managing feeling. He's not trying to make you leave. He's trying to survive how much he wants you to stay. And here's the transformation point. When you don't react to his shadow anger with defense or withdrawal, when you remain present without absorbing his projection, something shifts. You become the container for his integration. You show him through your steadiness that love doesn't have to dissolve identity. The shadow doesn't just contain rejected aspects of self. It contains capacities we haven't yet claimed. When someone loves us unconsciously, they begin mirroring aspects of our own shadow back to us. They show us parts of ourselves we haven't integrated. He'll express emotions you've repressed. He'll voice doubts you've silenced. He'll embody qualities you've rejected. And this creates an extraordinary dynamic. You're each showing the other their unlived life. Watch what qualities irritate you most about him. Not abusive behaviors or genuine incompatibilities, but the small things that trigger disproportionate reaction. These are often your own shadow aspects that he's carrying for you. And notice what aspects of you seem to destabilize him most. Your independence might trigger his fear of abandonment. Your certainty might constellate his doubt. Your emotional expression might overwhelm his controlled persona. When two people love each other beyond their conscious awareness, they create what we call a shadow marriage, an unconscious bond where each becomes the repository for what the other cannot integrate. This is both the deepest intimacy and the most challenging dynamic, because you're each forcing the other toward wholeness. The shadow doesn't want to stay hidden. It wants to be recognized, integrated, made conscious. And one of the most powerful forces pulling shadow material into consciousness is love. When he loves you more than he realizes, his entire shadow constellation activates. Every wound around worthiness surfaces. Every fear of abandonment intensifies. Every defense against vulnerability strengthens. Not because you're causing these things, but because you're important enough to trigger the unconscious material that needs healing. He'll start behaving in ways that don't match his values. The man who prides himself on independence will become possessive. The man who values communication will shut down. The man who thinks he's evolved will regress to adolescent patterns. This isn't failure. This is the psyche's attempt to bring unconscious material into the light where it can be worked with. His shadow is using the relationship as the integration ground, and here's what determines whether this becomes growth or destruction. Can he recognize what's happening? Can he see his own shadow material without collapsing into shame? Can you hold space for his process without taking responsibility for his healing? The man who loves you unconsciously is being given an opportunity for profound transformation. You're the mirror showing him everything he hasn't integrated. But the work of integration is his. You cannot love someone into wholeness. You can only remain whole yourself while they do their work. The shadow reveals itself most powerfully when our persona fails. When we're stressed, exhausted, overwhelmed, these are the moments when the unconscious breaks through our carefully constructed self-image. Watch how he treats you when he's depleted. Does he become cruel, or does he become more honest? Does he push you away, or does he reveal vulnerability he usually hides? The shadow truth of how much he loves you emerges in moments when he can't maintain his usual presentation. Many men have been conditioned to perform strength, to hide need, to present invulnerability. His persona might be the capable provider, the rational problem solver, the emotionally steady partner. But his shadow contains the scared child, the overwhelmed human, the person who desperately needs connection. When he lets you see his shadow vulnerability, not as manipulation, but as authentic revealing, he's showing you love that goes deeper than his conscious awareness. He's trusting you with the parts of himself he's learned to hide. One of the most painful shadow expressions of unconscious love is resistance to commitment from a man who clearly cannot stay away from you. He won't fully commit, but he also won't leave. He maintains distance, but he keeps returning. He insists he's not ready, but his actions reveal dependence. This contradiction is not manipulation. It's the shadow's honest expression of internal conflict. Part of him, the unconscious part, has already committed at a soul level. But his conscious mind, his ego structure, his defense systems are terrified of what that commitment means. The shadow knows this is the relationship that will demand transformation. This is the love that will require him to face every wound he's avoided, every pattern he's repeated, every aspect of himself he's rejected. His resistance isn't to you. It's to the death of who he's been and the birth of who he could become. And here's the critical understanding: you cannot resolve this conflict for him. You cannot love him into readiness. You cannot prove yourself worthy of his commitment. The integration work is internal. Either he'll do it or he won't. Your only power is to remain clear about what you need and refuse to abandon yourself while waiting for him to integrate his shadow. You can hold space for his process without sacrificing your dignity to it. There's a profound difference between a shadow marriage and a conscious partnership. And understanding this difference changes everything about how we relate to unconscious love. In a shadow marriage, each partner carries rejected aspects of the other's psyche. She becomes his emotional life. He becomes her strength. She holds his vulnerability. He contains her agency. They create a whole human between them, but neither is whole individually. This can feel intensely connected because you are literally completing each other's psychological structure. But it's also deeply unstable because your wholeness depends on the other person continuing to carry your shadow material. When he loves you unconsciously, he's often trying to create a shadow marriage. He needs you to be his feeling function while he remains rational. Or he needs you to be his stability while he explores chaos. Or he needs you to hold his worthiness while he performs achievement. The transformation happens when he begins to reclaim his shadow material, when he starts feeling his own emotions instead of depending on you to feel for him, when he develops his own internal stability instead of drawing it from your presence, when he finds his own worth instead of performing for your validation. This is when unconscious love either evolves into conscious partnership or ends. Because once he integrates his shadow, he doesn't need you to complete him anymore. Either he chooses you from wholeness, which is real love, or he leaves to explore his newly integrated self. The shadow often forms around our deepest wounds, the places where we were hurt so badly that we split off parts of ourselves to survive. And one of the most powerful forms of unconscious love occurs when someone touches our sacred wound without intending to. When he loves you beyond his awareness, he's often responding to the way you constellate his primary wound. Maybe you remind him of the mother who abandoned him. Maybe you trigger his fear of inadequacy. Maybe you activate his terror of engulfment. And this is where shadow work becomes sacred work. Because the relationship that touches our wound most deeply is also the relationship that holds the greatest potential for healing. He'll hurt you in the exact way he was hurt. He'll abandon when he fears abandonment. He'll control when he fears chaos. He'll withdraw when he fears engulfment. Not because he's malicious, but because the shadow repeats the pattern that created it, hoping this time to master the trauma. Your only responsibility is to refuse to participate in the reenactment. When he projects his wound onto you, you don't have to carry it. When he tries to make you the bad mother, the rejecting father, the abandoning lover, you can remain yourself. This is how shadow love becomes conscious love, through the refusal to play the assigned role, through the insistence on being seen as you actually are, rather than as his shadow projection. There comes a moment in every relationship where unconscious love either becomes conscious or destroys the bond. It's the moment when he realizes how much he actually feels, how deeply he's already committed, how terrifying and necessary you've become. This recognition often comes during separation or threat of loss. When you pull back, when you stop being available, when you start living your own life fully. Suddenly, his shadow material floods into consciousness. Suddenly, he feels the panic, the desperation, the love he's been defending against. For some men, this recognition leads to integration and conscious choice. They do the shadow work. They face the wounds. They learn to love deliberately rather than defensively. For others, the recognition is too overwhelming. The feelings are too big. The vulnerability is too threatening. They retreat further into shadow defenses, or they run entirely. You cannot control which direction he chooses, but you can stop abandoning yourself while waiting for his recognition. You can stop organizing your life around his unconscious process. You can choose to be available only to men who love you consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what they're choosing. The shadow contains not just our wounds and defenses, but also our unlived potential, our rejected gifts, our denied power. When someone loves us unconsciously, they're often responding to possibilities in us that we haven't claimed yet. He sees the you that you're afraid to become. His shadow recognizes your shadow potential, and his unconscious love is actually calling you toward your own integration. Maybe he's responding to your power that you've learned to hide. Maybe he's drawn to your wildness that you've tamed. Maybe he's attracted to your intelligence that you've dimmed. The version of you that constellates his deepest love is often the version you've rejected to stay safe. And here's the profound truth: his unconscious love might be the invitation to reclaim those rejected aspects of yourself. Not for him, but for you. His shadow recognition can become your integration opportunity. Understanding shadow dynamics in love brings you to a choice point. You can continue relating to his unconscious processes, waiting for integration, hoping for recognition, managing his shadow material. Or you can claim your own wholeness and require conscious love. This isn't about judging him or deciding he's wrong for loving unconsciously. Most people love from the shadow more than they realize. But it's about being honest about what actually serves your growth and wholeness. Shadow love feels intense because it touches the deepest parts of the psyche. But intensity isn't the same as health. Drama isn't the same as depth. Unconscious connection isn't the same as conscious partnership. The question isn't whether he loves you more than he realizes. The question is whether you'll stay with someone who refuses to realize it. Whether you'll abandon your needs for his process. Whether you'll betray yourself while waiting for him to find himself. Real love, conscious, integrated, mature love requires shadow work. It requires facing everything you've rejected about yourself. It requires reclaiming the parts you've disowned. It requires becoming whole individually so you can relate authentically. When he does the work to recognize his shadow, to integrate his projections, to own his feelings consciously, this is when unconscious love transforms into something real. This is when the relationship moves from psychological completion to authentic choice. You'll know the difference because the energy shifts, the drama decreases, the intensity remains, but it's no longer driven by unconscious forces. He knows why he's choosing you. He understands what he feels. He takes responsibility for his experience rather than projecting it onto you. And you'll know the difference in yourself too. You'll stop trying to earn his awareness. You'll stop managing his process. You'll stop betraying your own needs to accommodate his shadows. The man who loves you more than he realizes is showing you something profound through his unconscious behaviors. He's revealing both his depth of feeling and his lack of integration. He's demonstrating both his capacity for connection and his inability to claim it consciously. Your work is not to decode his shadow or manage his integration. Your work is to remain whole while he does his work or while he doesn't. To honor what his unconscious recognizes while requiring that his conscious mind show up too. Because you deserve love that knows itself. You deserve a partner who has done enough shadow work to love deliberately. You deserve someone who doesn't just feel deeply in their unconscious, but claims that feeling consciously and chooses you with full awareness. The shadow will always be with us. Integration is a lifelong process, not a destination. But there's a profound difference between someone actively engaging their shadow material and someone living entirely from unconscious patterns. Love that stays hidden in the shadow never becomes real. But shadow material that gets brought into consciousness through love becomes the foundation for the deepest intimacy possible. The question is whether he's willing to do that work, and whether you're willing to stop sacrificing yourself while waiting to find out.